Tamron is really only one brand producing lenses that is innovative right now. They're first to break the rules and come up with the lenses that nobody else does. This lens, this focal length it has to offer, is nothing new. It is a common standard zoom, but it is a first autofocusing lens from a major mainstream brand for Nikon Z system, which is a Nikon. It is a very versatile, light, small-ish lens that right now Nikon hasn't got an answer to. Very smart move from Tamron to release a lens, a focal range that is missing from the Nikon on lens catalog first. Is this Tamron 70-300 f4.5 to f6.3 Di III RXD lens worth going for? Is it a lens that performs well on a Nikon Z camera, and is it a lens for you? Keep watching, don't skip, and I'll tell you more about it. I always loved, still do, 70-300mm lenses. I used to shoot with a second-hand, really rattly and cheap Sigma on Nikon DSLRs for years. It had issues, but it was mega sharp, versatile lens for outdoor shooting, and that focal range always kept bringing me back to it. Until this lens came out, there was no other modern 70-300mm for Nikon Z mirrorless cameras, and there was no other than Nikon lenses available either. Tamron have stepped in, and this is their first lens with Nikon Z mount. It's not so wide aperture, changeable aperture of f4.5 to f6.3 that might put a lot of people off, but it's not a problem if you have enough light available when shooting with it. In my opinion, this is a daytime outdoor lens. It will work indoors too, of course, but more you zoom in with it, more light you will need, or higher you'll have to crank the camera up to compensate for the lack of light. This focal length is very versatile, a lens for pretty much every type of shooting outdoor scenario. Landscape, close-up, street photography, and of course portrait. Even though it is only f6.3 when fully zoomed in to 300mm, the zoom compression creates really shallow depth of field, and this lens creates nice, creamy and slightly swirly bokeh. I think that this is a really good startup lens for pro-looking portrait photography. Yes, you might get better results with wider aperture primes. Maybe not better, but different results. And yes, there are f2.8 zooms great for that too, but this is a very affordable and more accessible lens. Also, you'll get more out of it than any one single prime if this is your only one lens or a lens to go with your wide angle to standard 50mm prime. It performs very well. It is sharp, good color and contrast, no problems. The sharpness is pretty much given nowadays with modern lenses anyway. Very little flaring, but there is some severe chromatic aberration visible when shooting towards strong light sources. Annoying but not unusual, especially at this price point, and most of the time pretty easily fixable in post. It is a lens that is very suitable for when traveling or for general everyday outdoor usage. 70mm is not exactly wide, but wide enough, only slightly tighter than standard 50mm field of view. 300mm is firmly in the telephoto range and good enough to capture things further away from you, like sports and wildlife. Also, switching over to APS-C mode called DX on Nikon, especially when using cameras like Z7 and Z7 II, when you will not be losing as much of the final resolution, or for when filming with it, you will get 105 to 450mm range. Proper telephoto. For me, zooms like this one are great for capturing close-ups, not only getting closer to your subject, but being able to zoom in to get closer. This in return giving you more shallow depth of field and more of that elusive, more pro look and bokeh. The annoying thing with this lens is the minimum focusing distance, 80cm at the 70mm wide end and 1.5 meter fully zoomed in. I keep finding myself all the time too close and not being able to focus and take the photo. In real world and without measuring it, with the measuring tape, the minimum focusing seems longer than stated. It just doesn't feel right, or rather natural to me personally. Probably you just simply need to get used to it. Not a real problem. Not a real problem with the lens, but problem I have shooting with it. Also, like with all current Tamron lenses, you can connect this lens with USB to your computer for firmware updates, but at the time of recording this is it. There is no custom or focus hold buttons to customize, and you can't change anything else like with Tamron lenses for Sony cameras. Autofocusing is pretty much silent and very snappy, certainly good enough for capturing fast-moving subjects or sports, no problems there. It works great for video also, there's literally no focus breathing, but bear in mind that with that magnification you might need a lens support like a monopod or a tripod, as the lens has got no built-in stabilization. The lens delivers really sharp results, but sometimes it really struggles to focus on something when you're shooting towards the sun, or when you're using pinpoint or a point focusing and trying to focus on something small. I guess it's not unusual in this class, but something to bear in mind. This lens is available for Sony E and Nikon, this Nikon version. Nikon version is slightly heavier and longer than the Sony version to accommodate that large Z Nikon mount. This lens weighs 580 grams, pretty good for a telephoto zoom lens like this. Tamron states that it is world's smallest and lightest full-frame mirrorless telephoto zoom lens. Maybe it is. Only 148mm long, 77mm wide, but to me it's just average size for this kind of lens. It's not big by any means, but it's not pocket size either. It looks good, it rocks this slick look that matches not only Tamron lenses in general, but also Nikon own lenses. It does not look out of place or cheap on a Nikon Z camera for sure. Firm focus ring, but there is plastic on plastic rubbing. Same with the zoom ring, and the lens extends quite a bit when zooming in. It does not extend by itself when carrying it around. There's no switches on the lens at all, not even auto manual focus switch. Just like with all Tamron lenses, 67mm filter thread, USB-C socket that I have mentioned before, and the lens has got moisture resistant construction. It should be okay if you are caught out by the light rain. Price, this lens retails for £699 or $699. Very well priced when comparing it to similar lenses available from Nikon. Well, the only lens that comes close spec-wise, the 24 to 200mm, which is more expensive than this, and it has got totally different focal range. Nikon is missing this very popular focal range from their lineup, and that makes this price even more attractive. This lens is very versatile and delivers a really good Nikon worth quality, and until Nikon releases one of their own, there is nothing to really compete with it. Yes, there is old 70-300 Nikon lens, but you have to use FTZ adapter with it. There's nothing modern to compete with it. Conclusion: I love this focal range. It is a range that just keeps giving, and Tamron really nailed it with this lens. It looks right and it does perform well enough to please any Nikon purist. The price is right and really competitive too. It's a lens that is perfect as just one lens when traveling, great for wildlife, landscape, architecture, portrait and more. Maybe not a good choice if you shoot indoor events, but stay outside with it and it won't let you down. I have always been a fan of an affordable 70-300mm telephoto zoom lens, and Tamron got it totally right with this. Highly recommended. Let's hope they will continue making lenses for Nikon Z mount, and that Sigma will follow soon too. And this is it from me. I hope this video was helpful or at least entertaining. If it was, please give me that thumbs up, follow me on Instagram and consider subscribing. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Tamron is really only one brand producing lenses that is innovative. Tamron is really only one brand producing lenses that are innovative.